In 1974, Mel Brooks was broke, exhausted, and about to quit on films. He had just survived a disastrous failure, The 12 Chairs, and with a new baby in the house, he needed a job desperately. And then there was an offer that appeared more of a trap than a lifeline. A script about a black sheriff in an all-white western town, a project every other director had abandoned. What Brooks did with it would not only redeem his career, but set off one of the most raucous, unseemly productions in Hollywood history. Behind the guffaws, there were catastrophes, betrayals, lawsuits, and tragedies that still hang over the film's reputation. A script too hot to handle. The concept that became Blazing Saddles began life in 1971 with a 26-year-old scriptwriter named Andrew Bergman. He had written a novella called Tex X, a satire on a black sheriff named after Malcolm X. Bergman's intention was not subtle. He wanted to dismantle the whitewashed fantasies of Hollywood westerns by putting a black man at the forefront of power in the Old West. Warner Brothers purchased the screenplay, but nobody had any idea what to do with it. First, Alan Arkin was set to direct with James Earl Jones considered for the title role. Jones was then years away from playing Darth Vader, but was already familiar with his depth and gravity. However, the film fell through. The executives were scared of the racial content, the frank dialogue, and how it ridiculed sacred Hollywood conventions. The screenplay was put on the shelf, too brazen and too risky for the comfort of early 1970s studios. Mel Brooks was offered the work by 1972. He did not accept it out of confidence. He confessed later he accepted it out of desperation. He had no cash, no vehicle, and a child on the way with actress in Braftoft. Nevertheless, he did not dilute Bergman's concept. Rather, he cast additional voices. Norman Steinberg, Alan Uger, and Richard Pryor commandeered the already outrageous draft and transformed it into something even more raunchy. Their initial draft expanded to 412 pages, a near 8-hour movie. Whatever made it past was still lengthy, boisterous, and completely uncensored. Brooks established the tone with a sign in the writing room. "Do not write a courteous script, please." And the writers complied. Jokes targeting Jews originated from Pryor. Black jokes originated from the Jewish writers. No one was in their own lane. It was a war of yelling, all-night marathons, and Chinese food. The outcome was a movie unlike anything the industry had ever produced. But the writing chaos was nothing compared to the casting chaos, where a series of calamities almost derailed the production even before the cameras started rolling. The casting horrors and traumas. Mel Brooks's initial choice to play Sheriff Bart was Richard Pryor. He had contributed to the development of the script and insisted that Brooks leave its raw dialogue alone, but Warner Brothers would not allow it. Pryor had been arrested on drug charges, and the studio deemed him uninsurable. Brooks thought of pulling out in anger at the interference, but Pryor himself talked him out of it. Gently, he said to Brooks, "We'll find the right guy. Keep going." That right guy turned out to be Cleveland Little, a suave, charming actor who brought dignity and sly humor to the role. Pryor's omission still haunts, though. Only 2 years later, Pryor and Gene Wilder would have established themselves as an iconic comedy team, with everyone left to wonder how Blazing Saddles could have turned out otherwise had the studio made the gamble. If it was difficult to cast the sheriff, discovering the Waco Kid was close to disaster. Brooks wanted John Wayne. The Duke read the screenplay and reported he laughed until it hurt, but that it was too raunchy for his reputation. Wayne vowed he'd be on line one at the theater, but turned down the role. Brooks next wooed Dan Dailey, a musical celebrity who was horseback riding good, but Daly's vision was declining, and he was about blind. He opted out. In the end, Brooks hired Oscar winner Gig Young. But Young was a drinker, and the first day on location made his peril obvious. During the jail cell scene, he shook uncontrollably and vomited green bile. Brooks believed it was acting until the crew got it and realized it was withdrawal. Young was hospitalized and never came back. He subsequently sued Warner Brothers for breach of contract, further adding a bitter legal battle to the pandemonium. The most sinister turn came years afterward. In 1978, Young killed his wife and subsequently took his own life. His brief, catastrophic stint at Blazing Saddles became a grimmest footnote of Hollywood tragedy. At their wits' end, Brooks phoned Gene Wilder. Wilder had originally rejected the role of the villain, but when he put on the Waco Kid's costume, it was a perfect fit. His subdued, quirky presence rescued the production. In tandem with Cleveland Little, Wilder produced a chemistry that grounded the movie. From disaster, the movie had blundered into genius, studio hysteria, and public salvation. When Blazing Saddles was finally finished, the initial screening at Warner Brothers was a debacle. Executives watched stone-faced as fart gags, racial epithets, and a man punching a horse appeared on the screen. Nobody laughed. Instead of cheers, Mel Brooks received outrage. Leo Greenfield, head of distribution for the studio, succinctly declared that the movie should be buried and written off as a financial loss. The other executives concurred, giving Brooks a list of the cuts that would ruin the movie: eliminate the campfire scene, tone down the racial dialogue, cut the violence. Brooks heard them out, accepted the list, exited the room, and then folded it into a ball. He wasn't making any changes. Knowing the movie was held in the balance, Brooks took a chance and screened the movie again. This time, he invited no executives. In place of studio executives, the audience comprised secretaries, janitors, and mailroom clerks. From the first few minutes, the room erupted in laughter. People doubled up, gasped for air, even collapsed from their chairs. People were literally rolling on the floor, one of the co-writers, Norman Steinberg, recalled. Brooks, watching the bedlam break out, muttered to himself, "This is our movie." Executives had to rethink. They could not overlook the deafening reaction from common folk. Nevertheless apprehensive, Warner Brothers hedged its bets. In February of 1974, the studio let the movie out in only 3 cities: New York, Los Angeles, and Chicago. No promotion, no critic sneak previews, just a low-key test. Much to their surprise, the theaters were sold out. People roared with laughter, and word of mouth traveled like wildfire. By spring, the movie was rolling out across the country. Even suburban theaters, where Warner Brothers anticipated hushed reactions, sold out night after night. Critics were split. It was called vulgar by some, brilliant by others. But no one, including the critics, cared. At the close of 1974, Blazing Saddles had taken in $119.6 million on a budget of only $2.6 million, the biggest movie of the year. Some 63 million people went to see it in the theater, more than most of the Lord of the Rings movies years later. Its box office was almost $600 million when adjusted for inflation. What the communication executives were desperate to murder had become a phenomenon.